Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think those of you that have been on while I was rambling, we kind of been talking about this one. So we did little history here. There's a resident at on the 500 block of Ann that's had some pretty regular correspondence with myself. I think probably first of the calendar year, end of the previous calendar year. We swapped phone calls, emails, really talking about the program as a whole, some of the challenges she's seeing, as well as some of her fellow neighbors over there. Um, she has done an amazing grassroots type process, as we see a lot with these residential petitions. Something I had told her early on, especially in that area, where there isn't a ton of kind of historical commercial activity that normally activates these programs, similar to Orange Street and Second Street that's sitting there right next to a bustling CBD. Um, Her block and neighboring blocks are half a mile plus away from the core of the CBD. But activity nonetheless. What I had kind of told her early on was not only to look at her block 500 Ann, but also surrounding conjoining blocks that might also be having some of the same challenges. That way, there's kind of a strength in numbers. And then when we take our counts, we're taking multiple blocks out there to kind of see a full picture of what might be happening. So late April, we did receive the first step of this program and got the petition signed by the residents at 500 Ann and 300 South Fifth Avenue. They join right there at Fifth, so 2 blocks there. Um, and it sounds like both of them mirroring the same kind of parking challenges on paper. Um, as you heard Michael talk about and some of the pre-meeting discussion, noted challenges on paper with parking around Sundays, heavily on Sundays, but church events in general. There are regular church events on Friday, regular midweek church events. Um, there is a noted trash collection day parking challenge. I think with some of the later night uh, events happening at the church and some nearby other areas, and with the private schools over there as well. Um, at times I think their trash collection day is Friday morning, and if they have an event on Thursday evening that runs late, residents don't necessarily have the ability to bring their trash, or some of the properties don't have the ability to bring their trash out and drop them on the corner, creating collection challenges if they're back off the street with the city's RTS collection team. There's also some new homes getting renovated on those blocks, as well as a potential new 4-unit Airbnb coming online. So it's not just current challenges; it's also potential future challenges as well. And then I think with the construction happening, there's also been some notes about construction workers utilizing parking spaces as well. I don't know if there's, even if the program goes through, construction workers have the ability to purchase permits on behalf of owners. So I'm not sure if this would solve that one or not, but it's a noted challenge nonetheless. We got the petition signed by both blocks. What they are requesting is parking restrictions Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. City's never offered a reduced hybrid type program. Um, we started with just an evening only program back in the mid-90s, and we expanded that to 6-day program in 2002. And then ultimately on 5 blocks downtown, we expanded to a 7-day program, Monday through Sunday, with heavily expanded hours on those restrictions. So we've never done a hybrid 3-day-a-week type program. What I told her was, and actually, if I can pause for a moment, let me try to bring up my my file here, PowerPoint, since I'm seeing that it's not on the screen. All right, can you guys see my PowerPoint now? All
Yeah,
right, excellent.
just came up.
Excellent. All right. So what I told her was get the signed petition. We will go through our normal, we'll actually do a 7-day count, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. We'll take car counts. We'll run those numbers and number one, see if they hit the current requirement of on average 70% occupancy, 6-day or 7-day, as well as the 25% of vehicles surveyed being from outside the general area. If they didn't pass the 6 or 7-day numbers, then we would take a deep dive into the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday counts and kind of see where they fall and probably maybe bring as a whole, bring it back to DPAC and really talk about whether or not as a policy, whether or not we want to potentially bring a revised lesser day RPP permit option for council to weigh in on. I think if we were to get to that point, I think there might be some other modifications that may be needed, as well as it may take a significant amount of time for us to potentially bring something to council if DPAC is in favor of it, depending on what we see with this process. Because just a modified Friday, Saturday, Sunday type program could potentially have ripple effects all over downtown. So it might not just be this area. I think there may be a lot of areas throughout downtown that could probably easily pass the Friday, Saturday, Sunday type numbers and activate these type programs. So I think it's something that we might need to take time on if we get to that point and really take a deep dive into what the ripple effect may be throughout downtown if we want to potentially pursue a lesser 3-day type program. Another note on this one, normally we take petitions from residents in May and November. That's when we start the surveys, start the counts. Usually it's a fairly quick process. Usually we can take the counts in a couple of weeks and then analyze and have data back within somewhere between 4 to 6 week mark of receiving the petition. There is an active city and CFPUA utility project on 5th Avenue right now. So I think that project honestly is going to heavily impact our counts. So we are probably going to hold our occupancy study through Park Wilmington on this one until that project shifts further north on 5th Avenue, because right now you've got streets blocked off. You've got portions of 5th Street blocked off. You got portions of, I think they skipped over Ann recently. So you have portions of Nunn Street blocked off. So I think on a positive and negative side, some of these street closures and active construction from this project are actually probably either pushing cars one direction or taking cars away from the other direction. So I don't know that we would have an accurate view or an accurate survey if we were to go out there next week and do our 7-day survey. So I'm trying to get some more details from the Public Works team and CFPUA on when they feel they might be a few blocks north of where we're looking at. So it's somewhat normalized in the area, and we feel like we might get accurate counts. That's the subject matter as a whole. It's actually 500 Ann Street and 300 South 5th Avenue. They join there. There was mention of 200 South 5th Avenue as well when we've had discussions with the resident over there, but the petition was not submitted by the 200 block residents and property owners over there. And then here's just a photo of both sides of that block of Ann Street. Left photo is coming off of Sixth Avenue. Small
Vance, your PowerPoint is not showing in Zoom.
Just showing the agenda.
Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
All right, cool. Sorry about that. So here's just a visual. This is a Google shot. So not currently up to date. Left photos coming off of Sixth Avenue view. Smaller church on the right. The parking lot on the left is actually owned by the same property owner that owns the church building. Parking seems to be less impactful minus that church event during most of the time coming off of Sixth Ave. The more impactful parking from what we're seeing is the right photo coming off of Fifth Ave. And you've got St. Mary's across Fifth Ave there with a lot of activity, not just on Sundays, but a lot of evening and event activity throughout the week, Fridays and Saturdays. What I've actually physically gone out there just in my travels of leaving downtown, coming back into the downtown and taken some random counts, random hours. I was even out there on a Sunday. And it is busy. I think there are some hours where it's pretty low and just residential only, and there's some hours where it's pretty heavily occupied due to events in the area. So that's, Madam Chair, that's all I've got on the subject right now. I think we'll be bringing this one back once we take the survey and see where those numbers and occupancy counts fall. And then I think it's going to probably warrant some further discussion. So I guess with that, I'll be happy to take any questions from anyone from the committee.
All right. Quick question. Does anybody know what the status is of the St. Mary's branch out to the high school?
This is unofficial, but well, actually talking with the police there, we're gonna do 1 year. They're gonna start with a freshman year, not this fall, but next fall in 2026. They'll add a year to the program. It's the current thinking. They'll add a year to the program every year for obviously 4 years.
Are they starting out with just ninth grade students and then circulating them on through 12th grade? Or are they going to start a full grades 9 through 12?
That's the clearer way to put it. Yeah, you're right. They're just starting with ninth grade students.
Okay.
And then every year they'll add a year.
Okay. It's another thing to consider too with potential high school students needing to, once they reach those upper grade levels, parking.
They're going on a drive. Yeah.
Within the area. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not familiar with this. That's a great note. So it sounds like there's a program between St. Mary's and New Hanover, or St. Mary's and high schools as a whole, bringing in ninth graders to programs there.
Yes, they're adding additional curriculum to include high school within there, because right now they only go up to 8th grade. And then they're going to be adding 9th grade, and then those rising freshmen will become sophomores, and then juniors, and then seniors. So it's not going to, from what I understand from Michael, it's not going to pick up, 9 through 12, grades 9 through 12, where you have freshmen and seniors all in the Basilica at once, or all in the school at once. But eventually, once those, starting next August,
you're gonna have a 4-year additional 4 years worth of students there. Yeah, gotcha.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And I don't think it's like maybe 30 plus to start. But city parking team may want to talk to St. Mary's to see what their future plans are in regards to their high school, because those students do need to park. So in essence, this weekend wouldn't affect that, I wouldn't think. But if we did the full,
yeah,
then that would greatly impact where those students can and cannot park.
Plus, yeah, this is something too, as we look at further on this one, And if we, between city staff and just talking here, between city staff and the committee, we feel like there should be a potential 3-day program, say that, there's going to be some pretty impactful ripple effects here to adjoining blocks that aren't part of the program, such as Michael's block, the 300 block of Ann Street. That's, if you take away non-residential parking on 2 blocks, there's going to be, as we've seen in some of the other areas, there's going to be a domino effect across the board. So if we get to a point of talking about any kind of revised program, we might also want to look at the guidelines here and put in some stipulations to where if for a modified type program, we not only look at a single block, we look at multiple adjoining blocks and how they kind of fit together on any implementation or impacts or anything like that. So.
Yeah, hey, one final piece that just occurs to me too is that the Salvation Army can be active on Sundays. It doesn't seem to be every Sunday that they have a lot of people, but they do have people there on Sundays, and it does take up parking like on our block, in the 300 block. I'm not sure how much it spills over any further east than that, but it does take up, it's an additional factor you might want to consider.
And these spaces, I'm seeing the street. There's no marked parking spaces.
Correct. That's something that the resident has brought to us as a request. That's a traffic engineering task. I brought it to their attention. I don't know that I've got input back from them yet. That is an option that if there's no permit type program, marking of this block could help with some of the driveway setbacks. I think it would definitely help with some of the trash impact collections, because I think at those driveways, it'd be a natural 5-foot setback coming off of each driveway, which should allow sufficient room for trash collection. It would be something we might want to, I'll have traffic engineering look at that. And then that would probably be also pending that CPUA project. They would have to wait. If they were to mark anything, they'd have to wait till that project's done, just because it's dirty and dusty and construction happening nearby. It would have to wait till after that, but that's a great point that they brought to us, Christina.
And I was going through Google Maps, the street level view myself. A lot of these residences already have a driveway where they can park.
Yep, correct. That's on my, we didn't talk about that today, but that's on my notes. As I've traveled, especially the 300 block of South 5th, I think nearly every resident on 300 South 5th has a driveway. I would say a majority have a driveway on 500 and the one resident leading this charge does not have a driveway. And I think there might be one more, maybe 2 more that don't have a driveway, but I would say majority on both blocks have a driveway. Absolutely.
That program. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. The house that's on the corner of 5th and 223, that thing's been under renovation for like 10 years because it was
right here. Yeah.
I mean, it was a demolition by neglect that we were going after when I was there 5 years ago. So I can imagine the construction traffic for that house is not making neighbors happy with all the commercial stuff, and then all the stuff on 5th with them digging up the street. So do you have any idea when that one on the corner is going to be completed? And that may alleviate some of the pressures that the street's getting.
Can you guys see the map on the screen now?
No.
You guys see it now?
Yes.
Maps up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff, you're talking about this house right here, right?
Yes.
The White House. Yeah,
Yes.
it's hot and heavy, under construction now. That's the one that that Michael noted as a potential 4-unit Airbnb, or at least that's what we're hearing from who's renovating it now. I don't know a timeline. I still think they have a long way to go by what I've seen out there. I would say best case fall, but I would say it's probably longer than fall before they get their you know, their COA approved and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's
So,
active right now.
so what's potential though is if you're thinking about doing the parking study after the fifth stuff construction project's been completed, that house may be online by that point, so there won't
Correct.
be as much construction traffic.
Yeah, less construction traffic, maybe more weekend, you know, visitor to that property traffic if it does become a short-term rental. So correct, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And then just a viewpoint, for those of you who aren't familiar with the area, same area is just right here. I think both sides of the street, if I'm not mistaken, is part of their operation over there. It's funny, this is only 2022, so that's a much later date. 24, as you can see, this is November 24 from the Google view. Some additional activity, not a whole lot more. Definitely you can see the increases over here. And honestly, you never know when these Google shots are taken, but you can see some increased activity. And this is just a random day in the Google shot. I came down here on a Sunday, saw the church activity, and you know, they've got a parking lot up here, I think right coming out of here on both sides. And with folks coming and going out of that parking lot at 10:30, and then traffic actively heading north, actively heading east and west on Ann Street, cars coming, cars going, cars trying to park. It was pretty messy from what I saw at an egress point on a post church activity day. So. Jeff, you were before we move on, you were formerly with the city's planning department. And I know the city short-term rental regulations hit some roadblocks in the court, but didn't the requirement of off-street parking stay in play with short-term rentals? Wasn't that one of the things that zoning could still enforce from your memory?
Oh gosh, I don't remember that far back. I know we went to court and lost, but I don't know what happened after
Okay.
that.
I mean, that's obviously something, you know, normally not managed by my team, but I believe there are still parking restrictions for short-term rentals that is part of their requirement in certain areas. And in this case, if this becomes a short-term rental, obviously there's no space or room for their ratio of off-street parking. So that's something we might need to, outside of this group, at least talk to zoning about and see what kind of impacts that would have as well.
That may be a question that you can ask Catherine
Yep.
to see if a quadruplex. I don't know if the city would, or I don't know if staff would look at it as Airbnb or as a for rental, quadruplex
Sure.
type thing. So that would be a
Yep.
question for Catherine: is if parking would be required. I don't think it would be, because I think with new code, they got rid of the 2 spaces per house.
Yep.
Especially in the historic downtown, because it kind of reinforces the historic fabric. But I don't know if that, it's been 3 years since I've been there, so I don't know if they've changed it since then.
Cool. Yep. Got it. Thank you. Anything else before we move on?
One other thing, I understand that with the city doing the redesign of Fifth, they're taking out both travel lanes, and I assume they're going to restripe it all with on-street parking spaces at that point. Is that the
Yeah,
plan?
Jeff, I need to get the final plans. I haven't seen it. I think the utility works first, and then there's some after utility work being done by the city with line striping and marking and potential bike lanes and some stuff like that. I need to get my hands on some of the final plans.
I think that would be something to consider in the study as well, because I think the plan is to take out the 2-lane traffic and put in bike lanes and on-street parking
Yep.
and such. So that may alleviate some of the parking there as well.
Yep, good point. Excellent point. All right, I guess we'll move on to our next subject. Let me get back to PowerPoint. All right, is PowerPoint back up for everyone? All right, excellent. So next agenda item, and Christina, Madam Chair, wanted me to bring this one up, especially with some of the detours that were happening this or last week on North Third Street. 300 Brunswick Street, between 4th and 3rd. And Christina, I don't know if you want to kind of throw some history here and what you're seeing, kind of why you wanted to bring it up.
Sure. We're just seeing a lot of increased activity along North 4th Street, and the City Block Apartments to the right of the screen on the shot looking down towards 3rd has its own parking deck for residents. And on the other side, there is several residences and one business at the corner of 4th and Brunswick Street. Challenges with this particular area is that the street is too narrow to have parking on either side of the block and safely be able to have emergency vehicles, buses, even though they're not supposed to go through there, and vehicles pass safely side by side. Oftentimes you'll see people coming in from 3rd Street, people coming down Brunswick, and they can't fit in this space. So proposing potentially eliminating parking on the side of City Block and keeping the side for residences on the right-hand side here in order to better facilitate a flow of traffic through Brunswick Street between the two block areas. It is a safety concern. Buses, fire, police move through here, as well as just normal everyday traffic. Parking is not necessarily needed on the left-hand side of the block. And there are a few residences here with driveway or garage. So I want to investigate this a little bit more and hear committee's thoughts on this particular area and its challenges. I will say this in caveat that this is not the only street that is like this, but it is often the most heavily used streets to come off of North 4th Street. There is another narrow roadway on the next block over at Hanover, I believe it's Hanover Street.
To the south there. Can you guys see the map on the screen? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hanover's similar. I think there's probably Troy probably knows Hanover well based on the building over there. I think there's probably a little less activity, especially from the buses and some of the bigger delivery type vehicles that cut through there, but it's probably about the same width left to right.
So in these heavily trafficked spots, it may be beneficial for the street to have one side, no parking.
Yeah, I brought this to traffic engineering this week, just giving them a situational awareness, and I told them I would bring back comments from the committee for them to kind of look at. I think there are definitely some safety concerns, especially as you come off 4th and come off 3rd, especially with a not a great setback coming at these kind of first and last two parking spaces here. I don't know if an improved setback on the City Block side would help, but also keep some parking. But yeah, I think with the wave bus coming through here, it becomes a definite definite challenge. And I think also when you're traveling westbound, and this is just personal experience, you're traveling westbound and at this light, there's a few cars stacked here, and then there's cars parked on the left side. You at times have cars coming off Third Street pretty fast and furious. And between the short setback, narrow drive lane, and a stopped 2 or 3 cars here, it's a challenge.
I will say now, as a private citizen, that when we approved these uh, double units with the double driveways, um, it just didn't make for good planning.
These guys right
Especially
here,
coming,
and yeah,
yeah, I get to blame Spatrino on all those, um, because as you come off third, it's just a nightmare. And I'd actually like to see the city actually do an assessment on those garages and see who's actually made living spaces out of them with, you know, a kitchen or something else, and see if it's a potential to actually eliminate those driveways if they are
so
no longer in use.
Jeff, that's a great point. And I'm not sure if you were still with the city or not when I had this battle, but let me go back a couple. This is great. If I go back to 2019, can you guys see the difference there?
Yeah, yeah,
2019, pretty much when I arrived with the city in 2016 through probably 2022, 2023, when we really started enforcing this. What has happened on the block through the years is this house, the gray structure right here that was designed with 2 garages, ground level. Both of these garage spaces have been converted into office or livable space. And then the owners, renters, whomever are in these buildings now started for a very long time utilizing the apron curb cut that was designed to be an entryway across city right away into their garages, and turned them into their own personal private parking space. Jeff, I'm aware of this building right here. Both units, ground level, have converted, no longer garages. There might be one more, but definitely these 2. And I think the 2 down here on the Third Street end still, and there's a good example, still utilize these as garages. But what we did, because, you know, even a few years ago, what was happening here was not only did you have heavy parking traffic and a narrow drive lane, you also have folks pulling and backing in and out of these spaces. We went through and did about a 90-day citation warning on every single vehicle regularly. And we got a lot of pushback and a lot of phone calls, but eventually quieted up. And if you look at this Google view from 2023, people are no longer utilizing that as their own personal driveways.
but there's still a truck. There's still a truck parked in front of it, in front of the driveway.
Yeah, we're allowing that right now. We need to change the signs. We're allowing that as public parking because those garages aren't actively being utilized. So same thing was happening here with the Bottega. Historically, this is decades old here. Historically, you had the same thing. They had retrofitted what probably used to be a little parking lot back here into an outdoor deck space for the bar, and they were doing the exact same thing. They're utilizing this old apron curb cut across the right of way as their own personal parking space. And then we did the same thing. We talked to Bottega. They are no longer doing that. And then if you go there in modern day, you'll see cars pretty much parked parallel with the curb line here, as they're supposed to be. We need to update some signage through traffic engineering. But that honestly has probably been a positive in terms of just the perpendicular traffic and activity backing out into the area.
I'm just making a suggestion to maybe look at Bottega and some of those others and see if eliminating the driveway for the
Yeah,
potential of
absolutely.
someone trying to park it, because it's not only the car parking in that apron, it's also blocking the ADA on the sidewalk.
Yep, absolutely.
It happens in my neighborhood, and my little planner pet peeve gets ignited, I guess.
Nope, good point, Jeff. I'll talk to engineering, see if there's anything in the code that would require those owners to do that, or if public services could come out and honestly just break a few of those aprons up and we put some grass down.
I actually think that eliminating parking on one side would make it safer because it is tight through there. I'm not sure how Modern Baking has their parking. I can't remember if they have parking there or not. But it may be that maybe you have some parking on some side of the street with none on the other side, and so it kind of weaves through, around Modern Baking maybe, and then eliminating the parking spaces on one side from, say, the driveway entrance to City Block all the way to 3rd Street would alleviate.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Modern Baking, I've got notes somewhere. Modern Baking has, I think, a 1-to-1 unit parking space underneath their building here. But there are a lot of residents in that building that have multiple vehicles that are on the street in the area. But I believe they have a 1-to-1 or a 0.75-to-1 space to units underneath, like sub ground level there.
Yeah, Modern Baking was built before I got here, so I don't really know much about it. But hey, we could build a parking deck.
Madam Chair, I'll relay notes, traffic engineering, get their input. See if there's an improved striping plan, anything they could potentially recommend prior to taking away the entirety of the block. But honestly, just get their general notes and assessment of the block as a whole. And then we can bring that back to the committee to kind of weigh in on. Probably will help. We can have a conversation collectively with the owner of City Block. If he is in support, probably good to get that in writing. If it comes to that point, because I think he is probably the largest stakeholder. He is the largest stakeholder on the north side of that block, and a big stakeholder in the north end as a whole.
I can't speak for him, but I can tell you that I'm sure that would not be an issue to get that written approval. One other thing I'd like to note is north end is getting pretty tight with activity, and the future for potential developments in those infill projects out there is it's coming. So we need to start considering restriping these blocks, and I hope to get ahead of some of these developments to talk about parking issues. But essentially there's 3 plots of land that are ripe for development, and this one here is being advertised as a good buy for an 84 unit development. So on top of the challenges that we see already, on top of, potential social district, on top of concerts going on at Live Oak Bank Pavilion, and now a new concert coming into the Brooklyn Arts District, specifically in July, the level of activity and the ability for people to park in these areas is going to be, over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a challenge. So I've always advocated for another parking garage. Hopefully with these developments, it might be mitigated if they actually build parking within their development. But I really want to, continue to think, we as a committee, what to do with this, and try and be as proactive as possible with North 4th Street now, than waiting until, 84 unit development goes vertical and new residents move in, and now we're facing the heat again. because patrons can't park for the businesses, residents that can't park, patrons to the concerts, they're, you know, they're taking up space. So we're gonna have a real challenge here, I think. So I just wanna put that in everybody's minds as we move forward, talking about a lot of these challenges.
Yeah, Christina, over the next couple of months, we've been actively taking sporadic data still since our 4th Street discussion from the previous year. And I think what came out of that previous discussion with Deepak was kind of hold on any action. Let's continue to take data and then circle back. So give us some time to compile the data that Pivot has been taking on 4th and some cross blocks. And I will say, what you're seeing here in this Google view from 2022, 2023 has been pretty static through the years. It's been the 800 block and the 700 block that's pretty active with cars, as you can see on here. As of recent, what you see in this photo here of the 900 and 1000 block heading north, it's been pretty wide open. And if you were to drive down 4th Street this afternoon around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I would say there's probably a 5 or 6 linear block radius that is at 90+% capacity, with the construction happening at Med North and just increased activity as a whole. So I think we will need to come up with a plan. And I think there will be a need for some form of managed paid parking in this area, probably in the near future. But give us a couple of months, we'll compile data and bring this subject back as a whole and start chiseling away as a group to maybe come up with something that hopefully works for the kind of very diverse uses in this Brooklyn Arts area.
Has just simple striping ever been a topic? Just to see how that kind of helps deal with the rodeo that's out there.
That's something we'll need to bring up with traffic engineering. Some of the challenges we've had with traffic engineering, not necessarily challenges, but a lot of what traffic engineering does is they maintain what's currently out there, and marked and striped. Very rarely do you see them adding new or making some revisions. And I don't know that 4th Street's ever been striped other than, you know, the center line here that looks like it's decades old. We ran into some similar type stuff at 10th and Princess recently with the developments and activity happening at Soda Pop area. And right now, parking and myself are actively bidding and managing a project to revise the striping on a 5-block radius of Princess Street in that area to shift the double yellow line and add two lanes of parking, one on each side of Princess Street, because of the changing demands. This might be something that also eventually falls probably sooner than later under parking's funding and parking's management as well, where we come in with a project, we civil draw it, and then we actively, you know, pay for the updates and striping.
How much is something like that? How much does it cost for the blocks and
our budget? So a lot of the cost is removal. Princess is a little different because we're removing markings and shifting some things around. Our budget on Princess, I think, which is a 5-block radius, cross street hash marks just on Princess and those cross streets, full box shifting, removal. My budget's around 40,000 for a 5-block radius. I think things would probably be comparable through here because it's not a lot of removal. If anything, it's honestly just adding fresh striping on the double yellow lines and probably new markings in the parking bays. So I would say, depending on how many blocks you're talking, somewhere between 40 to 60,000, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, with this, yeah, I love Soda Pop District, I do, but this is downtown. This is Central Business District, and this street should be considered for a restriping project at some point in the near future. And there's just so much activity, and every other portion of downtown is striped, except for this one block, and it's starting to cause some challenges. And I know specific for the business owners too.
Got it. I will relay that as well to traffic engineering on the subject matter.
Any other comments on new business? Being none, we'll go on to city administrative reports. Pivot, Corinne.
Yeah, so I just got together the Azalea Festival breakdown for 2025 per location. This is obviously the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in line order. Sunday, I was here all 3 days, and in my opinion, we just didn't have that many people parking downtown. I know me and Christina were together, and there was just no flow of traffic on Sundays. I think that just had a huge impact. If you go to the next slide, I have comparable totals from last year and this year. So obviously we were down, but we were also down transactions in total. The decks didn't even fill up that much, especially on Sunday. Like Saturday was our biggest day as normal, as well as, you know, the concerts this year. I think we had Better People last year also performing. From 2024. You had T-Pain and Chase Rice, and 2025 it was Justin Moore and Flo Rida. That is your complete breakdown. I didn't put too much detail into this for overall citations and everything else. I kind of just wanted to focus on overall totals for Azalea.
And there was a pretty hefty post Azalea Fest meeting between the city, some other downtown stakeholders, DBA, WDI, Azalea Fest organizers, just about access as a whole during this weekend. Not just attendee parking type access, but businesses, residents, everything. Access as a whole seemed to be one of the biggest challenges year after year. What I personally saw and the comments I got from a lot of varying diverse entities downtown, there were challenges getting into downtown and through some of those closer WPD event barricades. And I think honestly, our parking numbers are reflective of that, because what was happening were folks could not get past Fifth regularly. Even post parade, there were challenges, and there was a lot of outlying neighborhood parking on 4th, 5th, 6th, and other streets, which you normally see. But I think with the drop in activity here, my assumption is the residential impact parking during the weekend was much higher than it has been in the last couple of years based on our numbers.
Yeah, parking was a challenge. I know Friday morning downtown was pretty deserted as soon as they put those barricades up. Barricades went up fairly early in the day, and people were confused about where to go. My suggestion to Azalea was to create not just a barricade map, but creating a traffic flow map that's going to show people where they can access downtown Wilmington and how to access downtown Wilmington. And keeping and configuring the festival in such a way that does not bottleneck South Front Street and the south end of the district, because pretty much there's no way of getting in or out other than south Front Streets in that general area from Market, Dock, and Orange and Ann. So I don't know what their committee is going to do to help alleviate that. I'm hoping at least a traffic flow map will come about. But it's a real challenge accessing downtown. Not only for the people who want to attend the Azalea Festival, which, you know, is the whole reason why the festival is down there, but also for the residents, for the employees who have to come downtown to work their shifts and that sort of thing. So hopefully more to come with the Azalea Festival on that.
Corinne, correct me if I'm wrong, Market Street never hit capacity.
That's correct.
So that's the first time I've been here since, I guess my first Azalea Festival was 2017. And like clockwork, Market Street is at capacity, normally around the 1:30 to 2:30 mark on Saturday. And this is the first year we did not hit capacity and put that full sign up in Market Street. So that tells you about access and some of the challenges everyone was seeing. I think that's a telltale sign of just some changes that might need to be made just to make it easier for folks to come and go. Is that it, Corinne?
That's it.
Then, Madam Chair, on the city update, got a blank screen here. I didn't have a lot to bring to the table today. One pretty important update. We have been looking to hire a full-time parking manager since my role got revised a few years ago. I took my sweet time to kind of determine who and what we needed in that position. We put it out through HR, advertised it twice. We have put an offer into a candidate. It's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet, nor public of who this candidate is. But we have an offer in, and if all goes well, we should have a new parking manager starting with the city of Wilmington in July. So if it's 100% signed, sealed, and delivered, hopefully I'll have a name and some updates in our June meeting.
Any comments, concerns? Can we move on to organizational reports? Lieutenant?
All right, good morning. For the month of April, we had our ALE guys did 6 bar inspections with 9 violations. We had a total of 121 charges that month throughout the downtown district. 34 of them were drug charges, 27 misdemeanor, 7 felony. We had 3 DWIs, and the others were basically the resist, trespass, the homelessness and unhoused guys, afraid, dealing with those. The only major thing, our mounted unit has switched to our night shift for the summer months due to the heat. We're getting a lot of media attention. Today, we are meeting with 3 or 4 outlets to discuss some of the things that are going on, the current events with that unit. And the big thing is yesterday we made 2 arrests for the shooting in the parking deck this past weekend. Those guys are charged with felony charges for discharging the firearm within the enclosure to incite fear and discharge the firearm within city limits. But other than that, that's all we have.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Lieutenant, one quick question. I had a business owner say that there was another shooting over the weekend from a white Jeep. Is that an active investigation?
That's the first I've heard of it, honestly. I have not heard anything about it. The only shooting I'm aware of is the one in the parking deck. I can look into that, but I would know. It didn't come across my desk, or I was not notified.
Okay.
Do you know where or when?
Yeah, it was at the corner of Front and Princess Streets, white Jeep.
And that was over the weekend?
Over the weekend.
Okay.
I'll send you his contact information. Beer Barrio might have some video footage.
Yeah, I can reach out. Absolutely.
And I'll text you. I'll send you some screenshots of the individual who contacted me about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Any at-large members interested in weighing in on discussion or sharing any updates? Okay. Cape Fear Community College. Sean's not here, is he?
Yeah, I think Sean is out.
Sean is out.
Yeah, he shot me a note last week.
Okay. DBA. Gary is not.
DBA, yeah, Gary's out of town, on some personal matters, so he's out as well.
Sure thing. New Hanover County.
No updates, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Row. Did Michael jump off?
Yeah, lost Michael.
Okay. WDI, no real crazy updates. We're still working through, waiting on the budget. I'm hoping that we will have our holiday lighting funding for this coming year. Really hoping that comes out of the MSD budget. $200,000 to get the program started for next year. Still working out just a few little areas where I'd like to expand some string lighting, mainly on the south end Riverwalk where we have power, and hope to secure a contract sometime in June. And then lastly, I don't know if you guys can see this on your screen, but we have finally printed out some MSD cards explaining the ambassador services. And if we were in person, I would bring some of these cards to you. But on the back, there is a place for our interactive map, and then also an MSD survey that we are taking online. These cards have been passed out since late last week, and I've received about 7 responses for our ambassadors program, and overall they've been pretty positive. So just wanted to share that with you. If you need them, you ever have a need for a card for a business owner or resident, be happy to help. Any last minute comments from committee members? All right, well, with that, we can adjourn. All those in favor sign off.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.